Your book, It's All About Your Team, explores the importance of putting people first. What inspired you to write it, and why do you believe team dynamics are so critical to successful project delivery in today's AEC environment?
The person that was most well-respected back then, the guy that cursed the most, the biggest, burliest kind of guy, and the guy that just did his own thing. He was like, oh, this guy's so cool, he's independent, he doesn't listen to anybody and does his thing. Well, that doesn't work in our environment. We are a team. Our whole environment's about teams. So it inspired me to write the book to get people aligned.
Did you know that in major infrastructure projects, the greatest risk to success often isn't technical, it's the team dynamic? In this episode, we're joined by Michael Giaramita, Chairman of the Board and CEO at Group PMX, who will share how putting people first can turn around struggling projects, drive innovation in traditional environments, and create lasting project outcomes through a one-team shared success mindset. Whether you're managing multi-million-dollar infrastructure programs or just getting started in the field, this episode will reshape how you think about leadership and collaboration. Before we jump in, I wanted to tell you about our AEC PM Connect event. With this interactive experience, civil engineers can sharpen their project management skills through real-world sessions on topics like earned value, AI in project management, and risk management. Visit aecpmconnect.com and register today. I'm your host, James Taylor, and this is the Civil Engineering Podcast, the industry's leading show for civil engineering professionals, ranked as the #1 civil engineering podcast by FeedSpot. It's now time for our civil engineering conversation of the week with Michael Giaramita, Chairman of the Board and CEO at Group PMX. Michael, welcome to the Civil Engineering Podcast.
Well, thank you. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and I'm happy to be here.
Michael, can you start off by sharing a little bit about your background and the path that led you to your current role as CEO of Group PMX?
So I started working in the field of, design build, was it called EPC back then, in the petrochemical industry. And then I've done from that, I've gone into buildings and highways, airports, commercial, basically every type of construction imaginable. And that led me, and after starting, two other companies or two other services that I offer, like PMCM type services, I decided to do it for myself. So I decided to build a company, and the main emphasis was a great company, great culture.
So your book, It's All About Your Team, explores the importance of putting people first. What inspired you to write it, and why do you believe team dynamics are so critical to successful project delivery in today's AEC environment?
So starting my career almost 50 years ago, there were a lot of prickly people in the environment. And it was, so the person that was most well-respected back then, the guy that cursed the most, the biggest, burliest kind of guy, and the guy that just did his own thing. He was like, oh, this guy's so cool, he's independent, he doesn't listen to anybody and does his thing. Well, that doesn't work in our environment. We are a team. Our whole environment's about teams, right? You take a sports analogy. We have two teams go to the field and everybody votes or wants one of those teams to win. In the construction environment, it's like 50 teams. Right? It's not so simple. All the trades, the contractor, the architect and engineer, and the owner, everybody's got to play in sort of that sandbox. And when they don't, the place doesn't work well. It's not a fun environment. They lose money. They don't understand why things are going wrong, but it's because people egos are getting in the way, and it's not a team. So it inspired me to write the book to get people aligned in the beginning, to come together as not for themselves, but for the project, the goals of the project and the project. So that's what made me write the book.
Do you feel like there's been some good significant changes over the years as it pertains to that team dynamic, or do you think there's still a lot of room to grow in the AEC environment?
I think there's been, people talked about partnering years ago and other ways. IPD is another thing. But what I don't like about those things, you sign a piece of paper and say, I'm going to do these things, right? And so that's the principle. Maybe the CEO of those companies where they sign that piece of paper. I went down to the lowest level signing that piece of paper, but not signing, but committing to our philosophy of how do we get better quality? How do we get better delivery? How do we stop the fights? How do we work together to solve the problems? The worst thing is when somebody turns around and says, "Oh, I have a contract with you and that's your problem." No,
Yeah.
that doesn't solve the problem. That just escalates the problem. So when you're trying to build the team, you want everybody to be involved in solving the problem. If a carpenter drops a hammer, pick it up and give it to him. Say, "Hey, you dropped this." You know, go outside your normal boundary to make this work. And I think that is the success of our one team shared success philosophy we have with Group PMX. And the theory behind the book, how do we deliver better? How do we work together better? And there's no lines. It's just everybody's working together.
Yeah. So you brought up the your Group PMX's one team shared success philosophy that has contributed to successes on complex projects like the IMF HO1 renovation. From your experience, what patterns or red flags should engineers and managers look for early? And how does team alignment help prevent or resolve those challenges?
So you brought the IMF. My first meeting at the IMF was pretty horrific. So I went into a room because the client asked me, "Can you help me get this job back on track?" The job was 4 years. It had expended its schedule for 4 years. The job was 50% complete and 100 million over budget. So, and I go into a meeting and everybody's cursing. I go, "F you, F your mother." It was just, I'm looking at the people and say, what's going on here? Contractors, executives wearing an FU hat. And so I walked out of this meeting and the client said, "What's wrong with my job?" I said, "Everybody hates each other."
Right.
There's no love in that room at all, right?
Yeah, I mean, my goodness, there's no love. Yeah, exactly.
So you look at that and you say, he said, "What do you do? What can you do?" And I said, "I don't know. I've never seen anything this bad." And he said, "Well, can you fix it?" I said, "I think I can fix it." So I started to go through this whole process, and you have to, changing behavior, right? It's about culture and
Mhm.
changing behavior. And so I started out slowly. When there was a problem, I said, "Let me help you fix that problem." And the contractor looked at me like, "What do you mean you're gonna help me?" I said, "No, you have a problem. Let's change the design. Let's bring the team together to resolve those." And in the first 30 days, you're just getting stuff that's happening that day. But all of a sudden, we're looking at a week and 2 weeks later and 3 weeks later, solving problems because they were coming to us with the problems
Yeah.
because they weren't afraid to tell us the problems. So that whole thing changed behavior, which then changed the way we implemented it. And we met every day. We didn't miss a day like next 2 years.
Well, and that one team shared success philosophy really, I mean, that's a piece that you guys have, but really it extends to every stakeholder on a project where we're all together, all as a team. If one succeeds, we all succeed. And at the end of the day, that owner is the one that looks the best, right? Because they have a great product at the end of the day. But it's all the different aspects between your contractors, your construction manager, your designers, all those pieces. That's really that entire team that you're talking about.
Correct. It's get alignment of the people first, get them.
Yeah.
And the IMF was an example where there was about 6 months to get alignment, but it was pretty bad. But once we got alignment, and then I think the most significant change that was made in the project was about the organization. So
Hmm.
you typically when you go into a project meeting any project meeting, they talk about all kinds of things. They focus on change orders and other things that are distractive. So my rules we get them aligned, we get them into a delivery meeting. You don't even talk about delivery. If it's not about delivering that project today and tomorrow and next day, don't even bring it up. You want to talk about a change order, go to a commercial meeting.
Hmm.
So we divided the job up, and that was a strict rule. And after about 3 weeks or 4 weeks of that rule, everybody played along. They're all focused on what do I have to do to deliver that project. That is the most important thing. You think
Right.
about because if you solve the problem, this is how it works. You solve the problem, they don't have a problem. If the trade sends a man out to the field or a woman out to the field, and that worker gets a day's worth of work, he's happy, right? Because he's making money. When he sends people out in the field and they have a problem and they have to stop, then that's a problem for him. So we get ahead of that curve, and we measured stuff like how many people are on the job every day? What's the plan? What's the actual? Because that's the number one indicator on a project. If it's going bad, if people don't show up, if you need 100 people, 50 people show up, you only get 50% of the work done.
Right.
It's a pretty simple formula, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these things come up on all project sizes, but in particular, the complex infrastructure. So in complex infrastructure projects, how can managers ensure they're putting the right people in the right roles and leveraging each team member's strengths most effectively?
So I did a very large infrastructure project in Houston, Texas, back in the late 80s, early 90s. And it was 12 miles of rebuilding the highway. I was working for the MTA of Houston, and we had a transitway lane that went in the middle of the whole thing. That was the last thing to be built. So I did the design of the 12 miles, put it out to bid. We got 4 good contractors, and we developed in the process of going from design and bidding to going to construction. I wanted to take the benefit of getting the job done as quick as possible because it
Hmm.
was so the highway department wanted 7 years to build the project. And I said, no, we can do it in 3 years. But he said, what do you mean 3 years? So I did a very deep dive in the schedule. I went and met with the AGC. I went through all their fears of why this thing couldn't take 3 years. And we outlined that. I did a resource loaded schedule, and we went back to the State Department. He said, no, we need to hire somebody to look at this. I hired UT Austin, the professor at UT Austin, to come and look over my shoulder. And within like 2 months later, the guy said, Mike's got it. This could be a 3-year project. So we let the job at 40 months, was the largest section. The rest were all through 36 months, finished on time, 0.1% in change orders. The job moved. And we had
Wow.
everybody focused on building the job in the shortest period of time and moving the lanes. And we even eliminated some of the disturbance you have between sections, because you have these S curves that come in when one section is further along the other section. I tried to line everything up so we wouldn't have those. And in fact, one of the things I did is, if you take that S curve out, I'll give you the money for it. I'll pay you for the S curve. That transition, which is about $250,000, you can have that if you take it out. You don't do it. And
Wow.
they all started to work together and helping each other. And so it's again, back to team. How do you get them all aligned on what they want to do? And they were all so proud about doing that, because it
Yeah.
was something that they've never been able to do before, because the state dictated the duration. Here we had everybody lined up to do it twice as fast.
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen and heard is the philosophy of using your team to their best and highest use with their skill sets, their abilities. And it seems like that's where that comes into play, of when you're able to use the people's strengths to benefit your project, you're being more efficient in what you're doing. You're able to be more effective, and you can then shrink that time schedule down a little bit, because you have people that are very passionate about these things and do it very well, that you're not talking about that long stretch of time that's needed. And it sounds like that's what you're talking about here.
Yeah. So one of the conversations I had with the state highway department in the beginning was, I say, everybody on your team does a great job on quality control, right? They really want that job to be the best quality control, because they're investing a lot of money, takes a long time to do the build. And I said, I want to bring something else. I was meeting with the resident engineers, and I said, yeah. He said, yeah, I get the schedule. I don't know what it is. I put it in my drawer. And I said, you know what? We're not going to do that. We're going to show you what the schedule means and how to manage the work. And he, these, I'm going to say, I was 20 years, 30 years younger. These older guys, that's what they did. And they didn't understand. And I took that schedule. I worked with them every day to show them how we're doing it. At the end of that job, they all understood how to get the best value from everybody involved. And once you start to help those contractors get out of their own way, because sometimes they're in their own way, they started to perform. I mean,
Hmm.
again, the amount. So there was a big number, about $250,000 a day in delay cost that the FHWA had, so on this job, every day you delay this job, it costs us $250,000, because of delays to the public and all this other stuff.
Right.
That was kind of my mark. If I could save $250,000 a day, the FA would spend it, but I never had to spend it. What we did is we changed the environment, which made everybody focus on, it's not just the quality, it's how we're building, when we're building, and how do we get the best out of everybody. And I couldn't believe when all the 4 contractors started to align with each other. There was one time we had to call a big switch where we moved all the lanes in the same direction to the next phase, which then took all those S curves out. When each contract was helping each other pour concrete, get out of their way, because they wanted to make the date. It was a pride thing at that point in time.
It sounds like communication is a big part of this as well. You talk about alignment, but communication is a big piece of this as well. So where does that fall into all of this with setting teams up for success?
So schedule's paramount, right? I mean, if everybody looks at a schedule, it has every detail of every piece of that job. And when you focus on that schedule and you start to make, there's early dates and late dates in the schedule, CPM scheduling. When you start to hit the early dates, first of all, you get done faster because it's the earliest date you can get it done. Plus, everybody's aligned at that point. And by communicating that and removing the obstacles, because when jobs go ugly, everybody puts these obstacles in the way. Right? Oh, I'm not leaving, but band-aids, and they're always fighting against each other. Remove the obstacle. Also, everybody starts to say, well, I can do this any way I want to, right? And I can, if I follow this evolution that we have in the schedule, we can be done the fastest possible time, get our money out, and be done. And every day you get done with an activity, that's a risk mitigation, right? That risk is gone now. You go to the next one. And as they learn that and they start to look at that, they really change the way they do things, and they're on your side all of a sudden. They're actually looking for ways to do better. And it's just amazing what happens.
So, Michael, over the years, technology has obviously evolved significantly. With that evolving technology and delivery models, analytics tools, how do you promote innovation in teams that may be more comfortable with traditional methods?
So we have actually developing right now that we're using an AI generated called agent to do this. So every day you go to a construction site, there are indicators. First thing is how many people came into the gate and what trades are they. So if you know what they're supposed to be and you know there's not enough, that's the first indicator something's going to go wrong that day because you're not getting the progress you need. So we are developing called actionable dashboards, which are all the RFIs, change orders, payments, all the things that people that affect the project's delivery. So if you don't pay the contractors, they don't want to come to work, right? That's a pretty simple one. If people don't come in the gate, then that you're not going to get all the work you need done. So all this data is available to everybody every day. There's some place on that job has it. In fact, I was at a seminar this past week about AI and how people are able now almost to drill down to. So if you have a piece of equipment that's been ordered, how do you know where it is? And the typical way is pick up the phone, you call the trade contractor. 2 weeks later you get a phone call back and tell you. Now we can tie into that data. We can see where that PO is, and if you do it in advance, you can prevent the ill feeling of it being delivered late and everything gets held up because construction is a sequential thing. Every trade, first trade starts, he digs a hole. The second trade comes in, puts the concrete in, and so on and so forth. It is totally sequential. And if one of those people break that chain, everything gets affected. So you use that data. Like another thing we do is on punch lists. Why I don't know why we have punch lists. Right? That's just been an old school thing. So now I take the architect and the engineer, I put them on quality control. If you can fix the quality, you have to have a good environment where you have the same trades coming every day. But if you start to tap the trade people on the shoulder and say, by the way, if you put that outlet cover on straight, we won't have a punch list. Well, and you buy them a cup of coffee, you be nice to them. And you're trying to tell them, so listen, I'm like, especially the designer comes and say, listen, I am very passionate about my design, and this is my intent. I know you can't see that on the drawings, but hey, if you do this the right way, we won't have that punches. You don't have to come back. You get your money out, the trade get their money out, never have to come back and spend that, extra 10% that they would have put in that job to cover these punch lists. So it's just the stuff that if you just take this thing apart, it's been built wrong. It started out wrong. We're fixing that now. I think going forward, working together, being a team, removing the obstacles, and getting the designers, they're part of your team. I mean, they're not.
Yeah.
You don't want them. You don't want them to be adversarial to your team. You want them to be part of the team. Yeah, I understand why that person sees it that way. Let me help them get to where I want them to be.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to innovation, obviously the industry has evolved a lot over the last couple decades. You're seeing things now, it's even more rapid kind of each day. You mentioned AI, something's always changing. I think one of the things that I've always heard is if you're not innovating, you're going to be left behind. If you don't catch up with it, like, yeah, the traditional methods have worked for a period of time, but there's also a reason that we're not using, you know, pencil and paper to draft plans at this point, right? Like that's evolved. We're now using AutoCAD because it's become more efficient. It allows you to get more detailed in what you're doing. It allows you to streamline some of those things. And as that keeps going, you have to innovate. You have to innovate in order to keep up with not just to keep up with the times, but also to do what's right as an engineer and be thinking about the health, safety, and welfare of the public. What's the best thing out there to make things moving forward?
Yeah, like in your AutoCAD, so in the civil engineering world it was MicroStation. I guess it's still
Correct.
probably
Yep.
still there.
Yep.
And looking when I first did my first MicroStation job back in, I want to say 1990, somewhere back, or 80, 88, somewhere in there. We're changing from the civil engineering people doing hand drawings to
Mhm.
MicroStation and going to the evolution. But you think about that today. I can make a change at 10 o'clock at night. It'll show up on that job the next morning, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing, right?
Yeah.
With all that stuff you had to do to get the drawings out there. And, there's so many good things if you do it correctly and involve everybody, and you can change things, make them implement them the next day, correct something that would have cost you thousands of dollars to change back when you can do it automatically. And that's it, getting everybody involved and making sure it all works together, because it's about that team. Everybody contributes. You look at what goes wrong. You have equipment, you have, tradespeople, you have designs, you have all these things, but the equipment doesn't, unless the equipment operator makes a mistake, it's going to do what it's supposed to do.
Right.
It's about the people. It's all about the people. Everything you look at is people centric, and getting those people in the right place and proud. I mean, the pride comes back when they start to deliver. And we had an instance on a job where we had a team. I was building a business law building for Columbia University, and we were in the last 3 months of the job. It was the first electronic classroom building for Columbia, business law building. I guess it was 1989 or so. We were opening in 1990. We're 3 months away from the opening. We're putting all the finishes in, and the contractor called me and said, "Mike, we have a problem. We're cabling between the podium and the IT closet, right? So there was a 50-foot run of cable." And he said to me, "We have 4 inches of cable, and we had to have a 2-inch conduit in the concrete."
Hmm.
Right? So I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm getting a jackhammer." I said, No, wait a second. It's like we have finishes in, we have carpet in, we have millwork in. I said, "No, hold on a second. Get everybody in a room." So we go into a room and we start talking about the problem. And within like 15, 20 minutes, this young 25-year-old AV installer raises his hand and said, I ran into a problem similar to this. We were doing a project, and we had not enough throughput through a cable, and I bought this little device, and it doubled because it sped up the signal. So you get twice
Hmm.
as much through. And for $50 a room, I think it cost me $500 to solve that problem. And the contractor said, "No, let's hit the jackhammer out." That was a $1 to $2 million fix. And
Right. Yeah.
500 to, and no delay, right? Because The
Yeah.
business law school would have been delayed to open. So getting people in the room and asking them how they can contribute, what are the experiences? Because everybody has an experience that they can share and make that team work for it. And it's amazing when you stop and do that, things really change.
As someone who values mentorship, how can civil engineering leaders help grow the next generation of talent while balancing the pressures of on time, on budget delivery?
So working together, right? And civil engineering is only one piece of the whole pie, right? You got to
Mhm.
respect everything in a building, especially if you got, civil, mechanical, electrical, you've got the finishes, all these things that make that building up. And everybody needs to respect each other's work. I mean, I think that's key is how do you, and how do you contribute when you're going through the design? If you see something wrong, maybe not wrong, but something to do better to implement their piece of design, if the architect changes something, right? So it's that feedback, it's that collaboration, and willingness for everybody to accept these kind of things. Because a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't like the, oh, you made a mistake. No, you didn't make a
Mhm.
mistake. Maybe you could do something a little better and
Yeah.
make my design fit in with your design. And at the end of the day, the owner gets a better design, maybe even cheaper and faster.
Yeah.
But it's again about getting it right together.
Yeah, I think it's bringing them along, right? Like, hey, we can't silo our staff working on things of, hey, here's your task, go do this. They're part of that team. It's not just, here's your, like you said, architect, MEP, civil. It breaks down from that too. Anyone that's working on that project with you is that it is that team, and you have to make sure that you're developing those things. And I think you brought it up just a little bit ago. You said you guys were all sitting in that room, and it was a 25-year-old that came up with the solution, right? Like, because of something that he saw previously. And so the more, different perspectives on things helps with keeping things on budget and on time at the end of the day.
Yeah, that rotation of learning and then giving back. I mean, it's probably 10 years that it's still good. Like in the next 10 years, something else will change and make it better. But it is again, I'm back in the same room. You get a lot of jobs now, design build, they work together in the same office. They're all together, all the
Mhm.
different trades. That's important. It's important for everybody to be sharing stuff and working through it and getting the best out of it. And when you have change orders, nobody likes change orders.
Right.
No matter at the end of the day, I think contractors make more money on change orders because they've got a time element, like delays. Delays are the most costly thing on a project. I can't say it enough. You have a delay, everything stops. If you avoid that delay, and if you shorten that delay or don't even have the delay because people are talking ahead of time. So our actionable data does is looking ahead. If you get 3 months out in the job and you've covered everything that needed for those first 3 months, or the sequential 3 months, you're probably not going to have a problem. You're probably going to be able to build crazy fast, right? Build fast. You planned it, and you're always checking everything. And I think with electronics now and AI, AI is very objective, right? It just tells what it knows is the truth, and it doesn't flavor anything. It's just objective. If you can get a lot of things electronically and update everything you've got going, you can then act a lot faster and correct things before they become problems. Because problems, nobody wants problems. They want to live
Right.
safely, quality.
Yeah. Michael, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. What's one final piece of advice you'd like to share with civil engineers and project managers about building and leading high performing teams?
I think if I go back and look at my career, first thing is collaborate. I think effectively, right, and be committed. Don't give up. If you have an idea and somebody says, "Well, I don't like," don't give up. It's your idea. Try to convince everybody why that works really well, and keep on going. Use data and technology. I can't say enough through my career. I've seen so many changes in technology. We want to embrace it every day, and there is some great stuff out there that can help everybody do a better job. Also, the COVID thing has done some things that has changed people's behavior. If you can't go out there in the field and see it being built, you don't know. You just don't know. You have to see it. You have to observe it. Part of your lesson to be the best you can be in your field is to understand how things get built and where the mistakes are and how to avoid those mistakes. So you have to observe. There's no question about observing. Nothing. Think big and think bold. Don't be afraid to be a little bold about things. Culture, I think, is number one. It beats strategy. Have a great culture. Develop your culture. It could be project culture, team culture, uh, company culture. Culture is great to change this behavior and enjoy what you're doing, right? And give back. Like give back to people. It's an important lesson in life. Always add back value.
Oh, thanks, Michael. That's a lot of great advice packaged in there. To wrap things up, we're going to transition into our civil engineering hot seat segment. We'll ask Michael a rapid round of questions that will give you a glimpse into the daily habits, influences, and insights that has helped shape his career. Let's jump into it.
Strong project outcomes need skilled managers and competent leaders. EMI's corporate training delivers expert-led courses in project management and people leadership, plus industry-recognized certification and exclusive premium content to take your team even further. Elevate your team's leadership capabilities today. Visit engineeringmanagementinstitute.org and click on corporate training.
It's now time for our CE hot seat segment of the week with Michael Giaramita. All right, Michael, you're in the hot seat. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right, Michael. Do you have any specific rituals that you practice every day? For example, do you have a specific morning ritual, lunchtime ritual, things that you do consistently daily that contribute to you being a successful professional?
I guess the biggest thing is like don't give up. I tell people, if you have an idea, don't give up. Keep on going. And back to my my gym thing, I failed gym. So in high school, I guess I was called disruptive, right? And I guess that's what sort of my life was about, disruption. 3-4 years ago, I was given an award by New York Magazine for being a disruptor. Now, there's not much difference in those words, but the meaning is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
So one went from being disruptive I'm not very proud of, but being a disruptor, I can be really proud of that. So it's flipping that switch, doing things you say, maybe I'm not doing this right, change it a little bit, and maybe you become successful. You don't have to change everything. Keep some of those things that makes you to be different.
What's one book that you recommend to engineers regularly, or just one book that you've found to be extremely helpful in your professional and or personal development?
I'm ready.
I was going to hope that you would say that your book was important. Yep.
I guess the biggest thing is like don't give up. I tell people, if you have an idea, don't give up. Keep on going. And back to my my gym thing, I failed gym. I was so in high school, I guess I was called disruptive, and I guess that's what sort of my life was about, disruption. 3-4 years ago, I was awarded, I was given an award magazine for being a disruptor. Now, there's not much difference in those words, but the meaning is totally different. So one went from being disruptive I'm not very proud of, but being a disruptor, I can be really proud of that. So it's flipping that switch, doing things you say, maybe I'm not doing this right, change it a little bit, and maybe you become successful. You don't have to change everything. Keep some of those things that makes you to be different. So there's been a couple of books.
Thinking back on your
and
managers of the
I
past,
think
picture your favorite manager or managers. What was it that
from
made
good to
them your
great
favorite?
was a good. Also have I've done some, or my book, of course. It's not it's written. Yeah, yeah. Writing the book took me 2 years. It was interesting to do and learn some lessons about writing a book. But it makes you think about things over and over again, how you say it and what you want to get across. So it's all about your team is the book. It's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and everybody else. So it's about life lessons in projects. It's just project stuff that I go through there. We also there was a From Good to Great, another great book, I think, and there are things like when I named a company, or I'm sorry, when we part of naming the company was out of some books I've read, and it's interesting. You change your behavior because of something, and you say, wow, that's a great idea. I'm gonna implement that in my life. And you kind of pick pieces out of different books. You put them all together and you say, okay, this
I've
is
got
how
one
I'm
final
going to shape
question,
my
and that
life.
is the critical
And
civil engineering
it is
career
amazing.
elevator advice question.
A lot of books
So if you got
written,
into an elevator with a
a lot
civil
of great
engineering
books
student
written.
and had about
So pick the
30 to
things that
40 seconds
mean
with them,
something to you
what career
and
advice
use
would
it
you share
and
with them?
change, make it a habit of. So people that listen, right? Listening is a hard skill. It's a very hard skill. People that listen, and people that I have a project manager in the company. There's a funny story. It's a woman. I was meeting her for an interview, and I didn't know who she was, but I see this woman walking across the street and had this strut that was like confident as can be. And I said, I'm just going to hire that woman. I don't care what. I haven't met her yet. Amazing, amazing, amazing employee. You know, and don't ever give that up, right? So confidence and doing what you say, that's important. If you say you're gonna do something, do it. Integrity obviously is really high on the list.
I love that. Yeah,
But
it's a great point.
the
Michael,
things through
thank
my
you
life,
so much for
you
joining me
meet
today.
people, and
Where can
everybody
our
has something to
listeners connect
contribute.
with you?
Being confident, being true to your word, and contribute in a way, right? Treat everybody with respect. Be a team player.
All right. Reach out to Michael. He's given you multiple ways, and obviously check out his book. Michael, it's been a pleasure. We really appreciate it. Please remember you can find the show notes for this episode at civilengineeringpodcast.com. There you'll find the summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during the episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all your civil engineering endeavors.